Welcome to the United States of Tramerica, a podcast about how the institutions around us create trauma within us. I'm Lacey Wilson. I have a master's degree in counseling psychology, and I have been a therapist for 9 years now. Over the past 6 years, I have also been studying authoritarianism and erosion of democracies. So this podcast focuses on mass trauma and what we do about it. So hey guys, how is everyone doing? I hope you're having a happy March. There's been a lot of changes in my life in the last 2 months or so. The biggest one that I feel like I need to share to some degree is that I quit my doctorate program. In short, it was really difficult socially because I was the oldest one in my cohort and it was really lonely. But then another reason I quit is because I just realized earning a doctorate is not what I thought it was, and it's so much work. The sheer amount of work that you have to do in order to get a doctorate versus being a therapist at the master's level really is not worth it at all, period. I have a beautiful practice. I'm the only therapist in my hometown, and I'm proud of that. And so I've gone back to my office and I already have a full schedule and it's going okay. But with that being said, I have honestly pondered a lot about my authority to be talking about these subjects. While I am an expert in mental health, I was really excited to be doing my dissertation on something related to trauma in life and the susceptibility to following an authoritarian leader. And that's not going to happen now. I have, however, fallen into studying this for the last 6 years, as I said. I do believe I have a voice to talk about the mass trauma that we have been through in the last 6 years. So that's the biggest thing. I had to change my spiel at the beginning describing who I am because I can no longer say I'm working on my doctorate in psychology. I honestly felt a sense of relief when I quit, and so I think there's something to be said about that as well. Anyway, let's get on to the topic at hand. I know I said in the last podcast that I was going to go over the criteria for PTSD in childhood because it's a little bit different than PTSD in adulthood, which is what we covered in the last episode. However, I wanted to put a pause on that and discuss a topic about authoritarianism. Dr. Heather Cox Richardson is a professor at Boston College, and she has a newsletter and Facebook page with over 1.5 million followers. She does twice weekly Facebook chats, which I've tuned into for about 2 years now. And her area of expertise as a historian is focusing on the Republican Party and how it has shifted over time. She did a 10-part series on the Republican Party, tracing the steps of it from the very beginning of its founding. Honestly, I don't know if this is weird, but I have a little bit of a motherly type affection towards her because during election time in 2020, she was really steady and brought me back from the edge of anxiety, quite honestly. On February 10th, 2023, she wrote, "Democracy stands on the principle of equality for all people, and those who are turning away from democracy, including the right wing in the United States, object to that equality. They worry that equal rights for women and minorities, especially LGBTQ people, will undermine traditional religion and traditional power structures. They believe democracy saps the morals of a country and are eager for a strong leader who will use the power of the government to reinforce their worldview. By empowering a strong man, it ends oversight and enables those in power to think of themselves as above the law. In the short term, it permits those in power to use the apparatus of their government to enrich themselves at the expense of the people of their country. Their supporters don't care. They are willing to accept the cost of corruption so long as the government persecutes those they see as their enemies. But this still is vulnerable when it becomes clear the government cannot respond to an immediate public crisis. That equation is painfully clear right now in Turkey and Syria, where more than 380,000 people are homeless after Monday's devastating earthquakes. The death toll has climbed to more than 23,000 and more than 78,000 people are injured. Just a month ago, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan promised that the country had the fastest and most effective system of response to disaster in the world. But that promise has been exposed as a lie. As Jen Kirby pointed out in Vox yesterday, Erdogan and his ruling Justice and Development Party, who have been moving the country toward autocracy, rose to power thanks to a construction boom in the 2010s that both drove economic growth and permitted Erdogan to hand out contracts to his supporters. The collapse of more than 6,400 buildings in Monday's quake have brought attention to cost-cutting and bribery to get around building codes. At the same time, since a big quake in 1999, homeowners have been paying on earthquake tax that should, by now, have been worth tens of billions of dollars, but none of that money seems to be available, and Erdogan won't say where it went. So while I know I haven't really laid the base work for what authoritarianism is, this is a timely topic, so let's talk about this a little bit. Autocracy at the roots of the words means power to one individual. You can also have an oligarchy, which is similar to what the United States is experiencing, in which only a small percentage of people have power. It was a 7.8 earthquake on the Richter scale, and it seems like for years the money that the residents of Turkey have been putting into insurance policies is now gone. Simply put, authoritarian capture occurs when enough people from a specific political party gain power in order to be the yes men for the president at the head of the country. Once in power, these autocratic leaders may leave a country's constitution in place, but will gradually chip away at it slowly until the leader controls all branches of the specific government, its military, and judicial oversight. The autocrat and his followers in the political party are able to change the laws so that they no longer get in trouble for the crimes against humanity that they create. Once authoritarian autocrats get into power, it is very difficult to remove them. Every Friday, I join Dr. Ruth Ben-Ghiat of NYU, and she does a Zoom chat discussing these things and answering our questions. She's a historian, and she has expertise in Mussolini fascism, authoritarianism, and propaganda. At one point, I remember her saying how it's really remarkable that Americans voted former President Donald Trump out of office in the middle of a pandemic, and it was an exceptionally American feat. Once most would-be autocrats get into their office, it becomes nearly impossible to remove them, as they have rigged the system in their favor to have no accountability. So to tie it up in a neat little bow with Turkey, when you look at it from a psychological perspective, the citizens have just experienced a huge mass trauma. They are homeless, 23,000 people have died, more are missing, and there's no insurance to recover which they paid into, and it's now likely lining the pockets of Erdogan and his cronies. Their government is inflicting further trauma on them by not being the strong, supportive network that they need to be in the midst of crisis. There is no money to rebuild. Period, because their leader took it all. This is what personally makes me crazy about the people who support these authoritarian leaders, which we'll get into the personality traits that define that, because it really rocked my world when I realized it's not really about political beliefs, it's personality traits. The people who support these leaders seem to think they will always be on the good side of their selected political party. It is mind-blowing to me that these voters don't realize that they're shooting themselves in the foot, because eventually these autocratic regimes will come after you as well. There is never a point where these leaders say, that's enough power. or that's enough money. They will rob their citizens of everything. Think about how the United States is talking about removing Social Security. Where would that money that everybody's paid into over their lifetime go? They certainly wouldn't give it back to us. So where does it go? Many of Turkey's citizens have lost everything, and they can't rely on their government to be there because their government has stolen from them. The trauma within all of this is very real and very serious. I also wanted to talk about Fox News and how they have contributed to the erosion of democracy in our own country. Heather Cox Richardson wrote on February 16th, Dominion Voting Systems is suing Fox News Channel for defamation after Fox News Channel personalities repeatedly claimed that the company's voting machines had corrupted the final tallies in the 2020 election. The filing today shows that those same personalities didn't believe what they were telling their viewers and suggest that they made those groundless accusations because they worried their viewers were abandoning them to go to channels that told them what they wanted to hear, that Trump had won the election. The filing says that not a single witness from Fox News Channel testified they believed any of the allegations they were making about Dominion. So let's break this down, because the filing said people like Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, and Laura Ingraham, some of the biggest names of Fox News, did not believe that the election was truly stolen. The company made a choice to lie to their own viewers to save their ratings. For them to make the choice to lie to their viewers, they've now created a movement which threatens democracy. 2 years after the 2020 election, there is now a massive percentage of the population that believes the election was stolen right out from under them. It is a lie. People generally have a news source that they trust and stick with. Fox News has single-handedly pushed to put democracy in danger by convincing half the country that we have an illegitimate president and something vague needs to be done about it. I worry that people are becoming more and more primed for violence. We have a massive mental health problem in this country. We don't talk about it enough, and we don't do enough about it. The COVID pandemic and the era of quarantine made it easy for people on both sides to fall down rabbit holes and attempt to do their own research. We don't have access to mental health in this country, and it's a disgrace. When we talk about the issue of gun violence and mass shootings, many people say, oh, they just need to go to therapy, which I don't disagree that that's one facet of the problem, but it's not the whole problem. And giving access to mental health care would mean that everybody has to have health care, which is something that America is not doing. It's concerning that we have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying the country needs to be split up between red and blue states. For one, it's a stupid idea because there are liberal cities in every conservative state, but just the fact that it's being talked about out loud is so alarming. The FBI has said that the biggest threat to America right now is domestic terrorism, or terrorism within our own borders. So Fox News is directly responsible for how people view their country, view democracy, and even view reality. A reality that Fox News knew didn't exist. I think even with this lawsuit, Fox News probably has too much money to ever put them off the air. And Dr. Heather Cox Richardson has explained there's no chance in getting the fairness doctrine back. So we're now living with a country that half of the population watches a propaganda machine in which Tucker Carlson is given 44,000 hours of the Capitol insurrection footage and is now once again twisting the narrative. We need mental health in this country, we need civics education in this country, and we need media literacy in this country. Social media, I believe, has single-handedly contributed to all of this, and need to be held responsible as well. I honestly don't know exactly how that would be done, but it has harmed a lot of people over the last 15 years. So that's my rant for today. Thank you for being patient with me while I was going through some really big changes. But I feel good. I feel good about where I'm at. It's good to be home. And my practice is building and thriving. And while I am a little sad, I'll probably never have that doctor title next to my name. I still know that there's a ton to talk about. And ultimately, I really am at peace with my decision. So thank you for listening. I'll talk to you soon.